Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Along This Spiritual Journey. So, I want to talk about the concepts of right and wrong. These present the most interesting outcomes when people try to identify with being right or identify with being wrong. I have learned that, and I talked about many times before, duality is simply understanding that there's going to be two sides to the same thing. One is dark, one is light. Those in the light think they know what's in the dark, but they only see up until the line of darkness. And once they can't see past, they actually don't know, which means they're not actually learning the full scope of what they need to. The same as in the darkness. They only can see in the darkness, only live in the darkness. They can see the light, but they don't trust the light because when they go out into it, they're not treated correctly. This is why it's so important to go out and experience the world on your own so that you can identify with both. You are meant to have both light and darkness inside of you so that you can understand and appreciate the full scope. This is where gratitude comes from. You don't get gratitude unless you truly experience both sides of an experience, right? For myself, one of the situations I've talked about before, I've been homeless before. So I know what it's like to not have a place to sleep and worrying about where you're going to take your body and make sure that it's safe from the elements and all these other things that come along with it. And then I've also been in situations where I'm housed and I've gotten myself out of the situation. So I understand how to pick myself up per se and go to the next level of making sure that I feel safe. There is no right or wrong to that topic, but there are people who assert themselves into that topic and say, you're wrong for being homeless, or you're right because I have all of this abundance and therefore I think I know more. That's not how right or wrong works. Right and wrong, in my perspective, is I either know or I don't. If I don't know, then I'm wrong. If I do know, then I'm right. Does that rightness mean that that's going to be the whole experience for everyone who experiences whatever it is that I went through? No, because what they did to get to their right answer is going to be different than mine. But the wrong answer is always going to be not trying, period. If you don't try, if you never experience, if you really don't know, then you're wrong because you can't go out and speak on a topic you've never actually experienced. Now, there are people who would like to argue with that and say, well, I can observe. Observation is experiencing. So if you observe something, you're experiencing through observation what might happen, what could happen, whatever. That actually gives you the tertiary perspective of saying, now I have both elements to judge. And now I can make a practical decision, right? But if I only have ever, like people on these apps, seen the experience, but I've never actually observed the experience. What do I mean by that? Seeing the experience on TV, through somebody else's interpretation, through these apps, that's just seeing it. That's not observing it. Observing it is you're physically there and you physically know all of the reasons that this thing transpired and now you can speak on the topic without hesitation, right? To me, that's observation. Observation is not someone else's retelling of a story. Then they go back and retell the story. That's hearsay. So you have to understand that when you are participating in what we call right or wrong, you understand that you did your due diligence and you went out and researched, or you went out and asked questions, or you went out and put yourself in that physical situation to experience it so that you have more wisdom. This is part of the spiritual journey. Anytime you take yourself out of the comfort of what you know and put yourself in situations that you don't, you're going to learn what the outcome is based on falling on your face, jumping across and succeeding, but that still doesn't mean that you won't fall on your face later, and that doesn't mean that that person won't finally stop falling on their face and jump across themselves. This, to me, is the essence of learning. This, to me, is the essence of wisdom, because then you can say what is right or wrong based on what we call morals, right? This is where you start to look at a situation and say, well, realistically, if someone walks across the street and they get hit by a car, that sucks. But someone might say, well, did they check to see if the car was coming? Did they check to see if the lights? If you have the experience to do so, you would. Animals are not familiar with traffic lights, so they don't care about stopping and paying attention to that. They're going to try to go when they think that they can go. And unfortunately, sometimes they get hit. But that's where the awareness of humans come in. If we are paying attention to the signs and synchronicities around us, then we can make a clear decision on what's right or wrong. Unless, again, we don't see this thing coming at us, right? That's going to be part of the experience. You didn't see it. There's going to be situations where the light is green, it's your turn to go, you look both ways, and then you go, and out of nowhere, bam, you collide with something. That's another level of experience of a wisdom that somebody else is going to have to say, hey, right or wrong, situations happen, right? There's always going to be a middle ground. So when we talk about what's right and what's wrong, we have to understand the full grasp of it. And if we don't, then don't speak on it. Go learn, go experience, then speak on it. Because I tell you this, I am much more open to listening to someone who's actually lived that life or have experienced that life than someone who just observed that life. Even if that person's observations are accurately correct, emotionally, they were not in the midst of it, so they're not getting the full grasp of the experience either. I enjoy knowing that I can learn vicariously through others, but I would much rather learn through myself. That's the human journey. That's the point of saying if something is right or wrong, because now you actually can say, here's why it's wrong, because this doesn't fit. You can try to make it fit, but now you're creating resistance. And resistance is part of what I call distorted energy, because why make something fit if it doesn't fit? Now, if it flows and it fit easily and it just works, or if you know how to craft it and mold it and do all these type of alchemistic things to make it fit, then fine, you're creating flow. But don't take a blunt object and try to make it fit into a round object if it doesn't fit. Make a way to make that blunt object fit that round scenario, right? That's what makes something right or wrong. But you can't just take one part of that scenario. Let's say you see somebody do something that you don't like, but it doesn't mean that that person was wrong, right? It just means that their experience is different than yours. And for them, what's right or wrong is going to be different from your right or wrong. When it comes to the human life, that is very simple. Taking another's life is wrong. But there's going to be blurred lines where, what about protecting yourself? What about when you have to make sure you're keeping some way away to not hurt you? Well, in that situation, it's right. You see how it changes based on, again, the circumstance? Now, somebody else might say taking a life regardless is wrong. I say if someone's coming towards me and they're trying to hurt me, whatever happens to them happens to them. That's my right or wrong. But if no one's coming towards me and I'm not trying to hurt them and they're not trying to hurt me, then yeah, it would be wrong for me to just go up and hit them in the face. That's wrong. But if they're coming at me trying to hit me in the face and I hit them in the face first, that's right. That's just life. You're going to have to learn how to play with energy, because that's what energy is meant for. Nothing is ever going to be concrete. There's not going to be any tangible, real answers, no matter how much a scientist says it or a book says it. These are labels. These are things that we as humans created to help us understand what we think this world is about. But the main purpose of right or wrong to me is letting yourself have the ability to feel both sides completely. And then when you feel both sides completely, try to put yourself in some situation to actually experience it, unless it's life or death. And then, come on, use practicality. But if it's a situation where it's just an emotional exchange of, I don't really know, let me step outside of what I think I know and try, that's right. That's okay. But if you're just like, no, that's wrong, I don't believe in that, and I'll never believe in that, and it's like, have you tried? Have you experienced it? No. Well, then you're wrong. And you're just going to have to swallow it and eat it, okay? So those are my opinions. You don't have to trust or believe them. But at the end of the day, start identifying with things that make sense to you, and then go out and implement them into the world. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, change it up. All right? Hope that makes sense. Love ya. Mwah.